Welcome to the CURES Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. Today, we're talking about the 5 things you should focus on to create a strong family foundation. We're going to make it easy. 5 things we can actually do. And child psychologist Dr. Laura Saunders from the Institute of Living is here because we know we all want this. We all want to have happy families, and so you've got ways we can do this. Thanks for being here, Doctor.
Hi, Kara. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so 5 building blocks, and you've created an acronym. Tell me what it is.
Right. So this is took it from a psychiatrist who wrote something for the Washington Post. And, you know, I love a good acronym because it really helps us remember the things that we have to do. And you also know I like to do things fairly simple. I don't want complicated things. I don't want high-level things that are so difficult to reach. So we'll start with a simple acronym of SWEEP, S-W-E-E-P, which are the 5 building blocks to a joyful family. So number 1 in that is sleep. Sleep is something we talk about a fair amount. When we talk about mental health, I always refer to sleep and nutrition as the low-hanging fruit of improving your mood and your energy. And sleep for both adults and children is where consistency is the key. If you radically swing your bedtimes, you know, you're going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, and then you're having to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night because you have to work, or, you know, kids, especially teens who really resist any attempts to have some consistency in their sleep. The more you swing your sleep, the more disrupted sleep that you're going to have. Actually, I mean, I'm not a sleep expert, but, you know, from what I've talked to the sleep experts and what I know, from research is that actually your core, your good, deep, solid sleep happens earlier in the night. So some people say, well, I went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and I woke up at 10, that's 8 hours. Well, that might be true. But again, going to bed earlier is where you get your deeper sleep. We are, you know, diurnal creatures. We actually need to be awake during the day and asleep at night. And if you think about it, you know, at this point, it's pretty good. The sun sets around 8:30 or so. But to go to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, even if you're sleeping till 10 or 11, you're not getting your quality sleep because you're missing your sleep stages.
So, okay, so the acronym is SWEEP, and sleep is number 1. Again, it's consistency, quality, that matters. And then W is work, and then it's eating, emotional
expression,
and the
play.
last one is play. Okay, so these are the things that we need to know if we remember this. But so we've done sleep. Let's talk about work.
So work is what gives your life meaning. And for adults, you know, whether you're an adult or a parent who works inside the home, because that's equally valuable work, or works outside the home, it's finding a way to give your work meaning. For young people, their work is their school, right? Being a student is a huge part of their work day. In the summer, you know, teens hopefully are working in summer jobs or sometimes going to camps or doing other activities. So your work is creating meaning. So when each member of a family has ways to create meaning in their life by their work, by their purpose, it makes them happier individuals and a better contributor to the overall family environment.
And this was I just saw another interview on this on the Today Show, actually, where it's something all parents can do and it's free, but actually giving our kids family chores to do, even though they seem to balk all the time. The idea of doing that, it really adds to their development because they feel like, hey, I'm doing something worthwhile, even when they're complaining about it.
Right. Well, I think it does create this sense of what I call contribution, right? We all need to contribute to the whole. So finding a way to contribute, and it could be chores. I don't know that any child or teen has ever said, I know I'm contributing to the benefit of my family. Maybe 10 or 15 years later, they look back and they reflect and they realize that they were contributing. But it is a way to contribute, is to have some responsibilities at home.
Yeah. And, you know, younger kids, I think you said this before. And so I got my son, lined him up, and he's kind of being a mother's helper at least 1 or 2 days a week. So even when they're taking care of younger children, he's 13 still, but chasing them on the beach. That can give them a sense of purpose too, because they then realize they're not just the baby in the family.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a beautiful way to contribute, right? So in that, you're being a mother's helper, you're helping out, a parent who's got several kids at the beach or at a pool or something and wants to keep close track of them. Those are like, then you realize, wow, kids are not just these, little blobs that sit by themselves. They're active and they play and they move. So that gives you a lot of great insight into what it's like to be a parent and how difficult it is and how much you have to keep track of things and what supervision looks like. So I love that as a way to contribute.
I thought it was good medicine. He said, Mom, the kids don't listen to me. I said, oh, okay. So
A little dose of one's own medicine.
Exactly. Okay. So chores, because a lot of people say, oh, I don't have all this resource, this money to go to all these camps, and there's all this stuff available now. And depending on your resources, they're doing experiences in Europe, or they're going to this fancy tennis camp, or they're really an amazing athlete. And you're going, gosh, what am I doing with my kids for the summer? But the good old fashioned stuff of just doing some chores around the house, maybe doing your local team. As far as child development, that's enough. You don't have to be going to the best camp in another state.
Right. You don't have to be doing those things, right? I mean, I hearken back to my childhood where, a group of kids would get together in the park across the street and put together a softball game or do running base. I mean, we just created our own activities. No adults created them for us, especially young children. Young children have so much imagination. Let their imagination take hold. Let them create things. Let them have time in the yard. You can have something to do in the morning, in the afternoon, I call them anchor events, but allow young children to play. Even teenagers, can hopefully do some things to use their imagination, create something. Imagination is such a critical aspect of play for young children, teens, and for adults as well.
All right, so we've got the work of W. Now we're moving on. We've got 2 E's, and the first one being eating. And you have twofold, just the act of us getting together, and also I know nutrition is our low-hanging fruit.
Right. So eating, trying to have some sort of basic health and nutrition in what you're eating. I also know that fresh food is also more expensive than, sometimes processed food or canned food, but trying as much as possible to have some healthy habits in your eating. We, as adults, that's our, the role model that we can provide. I think the other aspect of eating in this building blocks for a more joyful family is the importance of the family meal, eating together. And it doesn't have to be, 7 days a week, even if it's like 2 or 3 days a week. And if there can be any consistency, you have Friday night pizza night, or you have Tuesday night taco night, some kind of consistency to that connection, because those are the real building blocks for communication and for family bonding.
And so it doesn't have to be, a lot of us, especially working parents, might feel a little guilty. There's enough mom guilt for everyone to go around of, oh my gosh, I'm not making a homemade meal, or we're not sitting down enough. You're talking about a few times a week, and it could be that you're all sitting around and eating a pizza, but just the idea of doing something together around food.
Yeah, because that's the time of connection. It doesn't have to be a gourmet meal. You could be ordering pizza on Friday night. And, that's the time where you connect. Maybe you haven't had this time to sit down. You connect about what's gone on in the last few days. Tell me something good that happened. Tell me something not so good that happened. You can ask semi-structured questions. Sometimes you can just, be an example. You talk to your child and say, boy, I had a really exciting day at work today. This happened, or I had a difficult day yesterday. That happened. Right. So you're modeling the next part of the acronym, which is emotional expression. You're modeling, sharing things and being open, and that not everything is, roses, that sometimes difficult things happen. And this is how I dealt with it. I'm not sure that was the best way to deal with it, but that's how I did it. Right. So you're modeling a lot of things in those conversations.
Okay. And that's so much of this is us just being a good role model. So we've got sleep, work, eating, and now emotional expression. What do you mean as far as what we need to be doing to help our kids be emotionally healthy?
So it is about kind of being in touch with your feelings, being okay expressing your feelings, talking about things openly. And that I'm not like suggesting that parents share like their serious financial difficulties or serious problems in their, in their adult relationships. I'm not talking about that kind of emotional expression, but I was so excited today because I got up early and I went for a walk this morning, right? That's emotional expression. I just shared something that made me feel good. I was out to dinner with my daughter and nieces last night. I shared something and one of my nieces reflected on what I was feeling, shared and said, oh yeah, that's happened for me too, right? So it doesn't have to be profound things. They can be fairly simple things, but the more you kind of openly share things, and again, we want our young people when they become adults to be savvy. We want them to be able to have emotionally healthy relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, collegial relationships at work. So the more you can be in touch with how you feel instead of stuffing things down and then acting out in other ways, the more healthy you can be and the better you feel about yourself.
So there's a lot of talk in the world about parents fighting, right? And all adults fight, I think, sometime, right? Married couples fight sometimes. So you hear all different things like never fight in front of your kids, or it's important if you're arguing that you show the apology or the repair. What do parents need to know? A lot of times they might feel guilty if they've had a fight in front of their children.
The reality is, as human beings, we all get into conflicts. We get into conflicts at work. We get into conflicts with our spouses, with our partners, with the people that we're dating. We get into conflicts with our children. We all get into conflicts. It's not the act of getting into a conflict that's the problem. It's the resolution. And sometimes things don't resolve immediately. But it's, how do you solve the problem? Is if every time you get into a conflict, you flee the room, that's actually not such a great thing. But unless you say, I can't actually talk about this anymore right now, I need to take some space. So that's the emotional expression piece of, I had a conflict, I need some space to think about this. I feel like we're shouting at each other and no one's listening, so I need to take some space, right? It's the working through of the conflicts. And again, they don't always get worked through immediately, but it's the coming back and then saying, you know what? I thought about what you said, and while I don't necessarily agree with the position you hold on this, I respect the fact that we have different points of view.
And that can be a big problem with parents, right? They might have different parenting styles, and that's tough to navigate about how you're responding to something in real time with the kid either not doing their homework or not doing their chores, or, and then, so I guess, how do we navigate that too? If do you always have to be on the same page in front of the kids, or how does emotional expression play into that when parents are also in the middle of differences?
So that is a fairly common difficulty that families encounter, is that partner A and partner B have very different views on how to manage a whole assortment of issues. And what you try to do is come to some agreements, but it might be that parent A handles these things and parent B handles those things. But that you're in, again, that's part of the agreement. Difficulties arise when you openly contradict each other. That really, because then the kids know that it's okay to know that there's conflict, but those are opportunities for splitting, pitting one parent against another. So it's not that there isn't conflict. It's not that there isn't disagreement. It's not that there isn't varying points of view, but you want to try in certain situations to present a united front as much as possible, even if that means one parent sort of taking charge of particular situations because this is their value or this is their point of view, and you are, as the secondary parent, saying, you take charge of this. I understand, that I have a different point of view, but I'm letting you take charge of it. So it's really kind of negotiating it that way.
Yeah, and so that's where the famous is, ask your mother, which sometimes mothers will then say. What do you mean ask your mother? Aren't you on the same page? But okay, so the idea
right.
that ahead of time, as we're talking about emotional expression, even if you have one super emotional parent and one who isn't so emotional in expressing, just saying, I don't want to talk about this right now, or I'm angry and I'm going to go take a breather. All those little things are considered emotional expression, and we're actually role modeling how to handle different things.
Absolutely. And so it is about that, it's like I'm angry, right? It's the identification of a feeling. I'm angry. I'm going to take some space. There's the strategy. Or I feel like we're shouting over each other and no one's listening. So let's come back to this in a little while, right? Identifying what's going on and then coming up with the strategy. And again, we're only ever looking for the good enough, right? We're looking for the good enough parent. We're looking for the good enough problem solver. We're not solving problems perfectly 100% of the time, but it's often the reparation or the correction. It's the coming back, even if you get into a big argument with your child, it's the coming back and saying, you know what? We actually have very different points of view on this. This is why I want you to do this. And, I'm going to hold strong on this, but I hear your point of view and I hear that you have a different point of view.
So even when they're 5, we would acknowledge you have a different point of view. I know you really want that cookie and you think you should be able to have it any time of day. You and I,
right.
so the reason we're doing that, and some parents might be like, come on, they're the kid. They do it because I say so. That, from a psychological perspective, doesn't always work, number one, and maybe then we're losing an opportunity to teach, I guess.
Yes, because in that example, right, the child that always wants, all of a sudden, in the afternoon, always wants to eat cookies, right, as you're trying to prepare dinner, what you want to do is identify the need. I hear that you're hungry. Do you want to have a carrot or do you want to have an apple, right? So it's identifying what the need is in those situations. That sort of old school mentality of, I said no and that's it. I understand some parents may take that tactic, but that tactic has created a whole generational backlash, which is the need to over-explain things. So sometimes in a situation, understanding what's like, okay, every single day, my 5-year-old, while I'm cooking dinner, wants cookies, but let's look at what the underlying need is, right? The underlying need is they're hungry. Okay, there's really nothing wrong with having a little snack before your dinner, but you're managing it. You're giving a choice. Would you like a carrot or would you like an apple? Or slices of an apple, something. So, it's really coming back because helping them identify the feeling is the longer term goal in having them be emotionally competent adults.
So one of the things we just want to ask when we're about to lose it or we're not going to handle it right, like bringing ourselves back and saying, what am I trying to teach here? It could possibly change our response.
Yes. And listen, the reality is we all get frustrated. We all have, stressful days. We all have all sorts of things that we're managing, and we don't always handle it well. The important thing is that when you realize, like if now you've kind of not handled 2 or 3 different things poorly, you sort of take some emotional space and think, I always think a deep breath is helpful. What do I need to do to manage this differently, right? Because you just don't want the cascade of negativity to happen, because then no problems are getting solved and there's just more and more difficulty getting spread around.
So I want to stay on this letter E just for a little bit longer, and then we'll move on to P, which is play, and that's fun. But let's say the kids are melting down, and I'll use my own son for an example, who tends to have a frustration tolerance that I think is a little low at the age of 13, or maybe they all are. But for him, I know that he can get frustrated, and I know he can also be very strong-willed. So trying to fix things while he's having a reaction, right? Often our kids are yelling at us, they're being disrespectful, they're using something like, I don't want to do this or whatever. Often we read, this is not the time to teach. The first thing we do is let them calm down. And so what do we do when their emotional expression is not what we want to see?
All right, so this is, I don't want to get into a whole other segue, because I do different things in the teaching of the doctoral interns, the psychology interns. I do it on the 4 reasons for misbehavior, right? There's 4 core reasons that someone's acting out. Attention, power and control, revenge, and the fourth one will come to me, but there's four. Anxiety, that's the fourth.
Okay.
So there's four reasons for misbehavior, right? So in that situation, what you want to look at is this just like a teenager seeking power and control?
Yeah.
Because I will tell you that once you're engaging in that heightened argument, you've lost control of the situation. So in when you think it's a constant need for power and control, what you're looking for in that situation is you're looking for ways to, in advance, when possible, make choices that you set up as the parent, and then, give them those choices. And it starts with just being one step ahead. So, and again, this is a whole other thing when we could do the 4 reasons for misbehavior.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And talk about strategies for how to manage that. But so that's just it. When you're engaging in a argument that's really all about power and control, who's in control of the situation, in my mind, once you're engaging in that heightened argument, you've lost control of the situation. So and sometimes it's, what, nothing's getting solved right here. I'm taking some space. You need to take some space. We'll come back to this, right? Because a lot of times what happens is that teens wear away at their parents, right? They wear them down. They wear them down. They wear them down until the parents finally like, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. And again, I'm not criticizing that. It's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is when you feel that pattern happening, finding a way to sort of cut it off and remove yourself, allow yourself time to think more clearly, and then re-enter the situation.
Right, because ultimately if they do that and you give in, which we've all done, then you just taught them that if they just keep going, that's a strategy that works for them, which is not what we're trying to teach them. Okay, so the next thing is we talk about the 5 steps to a healthy family foundation. I think we all want joy in our family. We all want healthy patterns as much as we can have, and many of us know that we didn't come from perfect upbringings. I think you would say none of us did, so we're all learning this.
Right.
But number 5 is play. And play is probably something we really need to do more of as adults.
So play really is critical to overall functioning. So play for parents and adults really is trying to find distractions, hobbies, activities, interests, and I don't care what it is. It could be, you go for walks most days in the summer. You do needlepoint. You like to go to the library. You love books, so you like to go to the library 2 or 3 times a week to get a new book. Libraries also, I love libraries as a resource for both children and adults because they have activities going on. They have book clubs attached to them. There's all sorts of things with libraries. But finding things that rejuvenate yourself, help you manage anxiety, help you carve out your sense of identity. It's hard, when you're in the throes of parenting because that becomes your real core identity. And I mean, that's often a choice, right? We want to be parents, but at the same time, it really makes it hard when we don't nurture some of the other aspects of our identity. Mm-hmm. Obviously, for children, play really is just that. They need to be able to play. They need to have downtime. They need to have free time, even if they're not always using their downtime or their free time in the way that we as the adults want them to use it, right? So if I'm saying, okay, you've got downtime for the next 2 hours, do I mean that? Or am I trying to micromanage? I don't want you on video games, or I don't want you in the house, although I do like them to go outside. So you can say, this is your downtime, do with it what you will, and find something creative. Or you can say, this is your downtime, I'd like to see you outside for the next hour or 2. Find something outside to do. I don't care what it is outside. Yeah. But then not trying to micromanage all of that.
Yeah, okay, so giving them that power and control is going to help them later on. But also the play, it starts with how we show up for ourselves. So if all we're doing is working and then saying, I'm just tired, I need to sit on the couch, which we all need to do that too. But the idea that our kids would see us do something that makes us happy or makes us feel free.
Yeah, it's really about living your values. So if I say all the time, be active, be active, be active, but all I do is be passive, that's not really living your values. And again, as a role model, the kids are going to say, well, she tells me to go outside all the time, but she doesn't do anything herself. So it's trying to really live your values. And again, I know we're tired. We've worked all day. we feel like we fill our summer weekends with all sorts of activities, but finding ways to bring a little bit of joy into your own life. I love to go for walks, so I'll go for walks. That's a way for me to clear my head, listen to music. Again, it could be taking up pickleball. Pickleball's all the rage right now.
Right.
Pickleball's pretty social, right? You get together with other people, you play, whatever it is. Finding something that brings you a little bit of joy in your life, and then you're modeling for your kids. Yes, we need to do things to release anxiety, or to manage distractions, or to live our values.
Yeah, okay. And so our play might be different. They might want to play video games or run outside. That'd be nice. But play for us really could be just sitting there and having some quiet time, reading a book, doing needlepoint, but maybe just making sure we're doing that, and also uttering like, I need a break. I'm going to just do something that makes me happy for a little bit. And that, by teaching our kids that it's okay to play, is going to have big dividends for their life as far as their mental well-being.
Right. And again, you just carved in emotional expression in there, right? You said out loud, you know what? I've done what I needed to do. I've made dinner's done, and I've cleaned up. I'm going to have some downtime, right? I mean, there's, I'm not even against some of these great shows on Netflix. I just watched the Queen Charlotte, the Bridgerton. Ooh, that was excellent, right? So,
yeah.
You don't always have to be doing active things, but it's like, you know what? I need some downtime. I'm going to watch the show, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to call my sister, or, it's again, that's the emotional expression part, that you're being open about what you're doing, and that in some way, shape, or form, you're living your values.
All right, so we'll remember the acronym SWEEP. We're trying to do a clean sweep for the summer, or maybe we're already doing some of these things, but we've got sleep. That's a little easier for kids in the summer, at least if you're not making them get up early in the morning. I'm letting my teens sleep more. The work, which showing them that meaning is important, even if you don't love your job, just finding meaning in your life. Eating, emotional expression, and play. So those are all doable things. They don't have to cost a lot of money, and by doing them, we are really transforming our family and making things have a wonderful foundation.
And you don't have to do all 5 things starting tomorrow,
okay.
right? So we want, we want to pick 1 or 2. We want to create success, but that's okay. You know what? I'm going to focus on sleep for the next week. I'm going to focus on sleep for me and my kids, or I'm going to really find one thing that I do each day at work that is more meaningful, or create something positive, right? So I want to do things that create feelings of success, not feelings of failure or inadequacy.
Dr. Laura Saunders, always great wisdom, always accessible. We appreciate you being here. I know child psychologist at the Institute of Living. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Kara.
And for more information on the cutting edge of wellness, you can follow me on social media at Kara Sundlin. Even join the CURES Facebook group. Have a great day, everyone, and be well.